Going into this with the new M4 Pro Mac Mini, I wasn't sure what to expect when it comes to PC gaming and emulation, but this thing is really impressive. 1080p and 1440p gaming, plus 8K GameCube and PS2 emulation on this small form factor Mac Mini. What's going on, everybody? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at some gaming and emulation on the all-new M4 Pro Mac Mini from Apple. And when I say M4 Pro, this is actually the 14-core CPU with the 20-core GPU. They also make a 12-core M4 Pro, and Apple really has their naming conventions a little messed up. But this thing is packing quite a punch for its form factor, and previously on the channel, we took a look at the base M4 Mac Mini, native Mac gaming, crossover gaming, and emulation, and just seeing the performance that put out with a 10-core CPU and a 10-core GPU, I knew I had to get my hands on the M4 Pro. And I gotta say, this thing is really fast. When it comes to I/O, up front here, not much going on. We've got a 3.5mm audio jack and 2 USB-C ports. Now, one thing I do like about the Pro model is we've actually got 3 Thunderbolt 5 ports around back. If you go with the base, there'll be Thunderbolt 4. But this is actually the first device that I've been able to pick up with Thunderbolt 5 included. We've also got a full-size HDMI port, Ethernet, and our power input. If you want to see the performance of the base model M4 Mac Mini, I'll leave a link for that video in the description. But again, this one here has that M4 Pro, and it's the upgraded M4 Pro. 14-core CPU, 20-core Apple GPU. We've also got 24 gigabytes of unified RAM and 1 terabyte of storage internally. But you know, when it comes to running these larger games on a Mac, I always use an external SSD. In this video, we're going to be testing out a few native Mac games. We're also going to be running some games that really weren't supposed to be running on Mac using an application known as Crossover. And then we're going to get into some emulation. And with this, we're going to take it up to 8K with PS2 and even GameCube, but we're also going to throw some PS3 emulation in there also. So I've been messing around with this machine for about 24 hours now. I'm actually really impressed given that this is an ARM-based CPU. As you can see, we've got that M4 Pro up to 4.5 gigahertz with 24 gigs of RAM. And keep in mind, this is the 14-core M4 Pro with a 20-core GPU. They do make 2 different M4 Pros, and Apple has kind of always done this. When it comes to gaming on a Mac, there's a few things we could do here. We could download some stuff directly from the App Store. You can install Steam, you can install Epic Games, get some Mac-compatible games. Native Mac games actually perform really well, especially if they're utilizing the Metal backend, which is Mac-specific. We will be taking a look at a few native Mac games, but what I've been using here is Crossover, and this is the preview of Crossover. So basically what this is going to allow us to do is run Windows games on Mac. I've got Steam installed here. Once I open it up through Crossover, it's basically going to be running in a Windows environment. And with that, I've also been seeing some really great performance. Now, of course, when it comes to emulation, I'm going to be testing out some PS3, PS2, and some GameCube. This is pretty impressive. I mean, GameCube and PS2 at 8K on a Mac Mini looks absolutely amazing, but I mean, there's not a lot of people out there that need 8K emulation. I still want to show it off here. But before we get into gaming, I did want to show you some benchmarks here, because even just the benchmarks I've run here for the CPU and GPU are really impressive for what we have. First up, we've got Geekbench 6, single core, really impressive here, coming in with a 3,972. Multi-core 22,917. And just to kind of give you an idea here, Intel recently launched their Core Ultra 285K 24-core desktop CPU that can draw quite a bit of wattage. Over there on single core, around 3,294, multi 23,000. And of course, we can overclock that 285K, but just kind of give you an idea here, x86 versus ARM, this little 14-core chip is trucking right along. Another thing I wanted to take a look at was OpenCL performance from this 20-core Apple GPU. And when it comes down to it, this is an iGPU using the Geekbench OpenCL benchmark, 70,482. And this might not sound like a lot, but given the form factor of the Mac Mini, and given the fact that these are integrated graphics with this new M4 Pro, this is pretty respectable here. But now it's time to get into some native Mac gaming, and the first one I wanted to test here was Shadow of the Tomb Raider. We're at 1080p highest settings, and this is the Steam version. I'm not exactly sure if the App Store version does support Metal. We might see better performance, but at 1080p highest settings, we had an average of 88 FPS. Moving over to one from the App Store, which I know supports Metal, Resident Evil 7, 1440p very high. This is running at 120 FPS. But another thing to keep in mind is the games over there are very well optimized for Apple Silicon. So a lot of the stuff over there, newer games that are being released specifically for Mac, you're going to see some great performance on this chip. But what about games that aren't supported on Mac altogether? And that's where crossover comes in. But even with crossover, you're still going to run into some games that just won't start up. I wasn't able to get God of War Ragnarok running, but with something like Spider-Man Remastered at 1080p high settings, we're seeing an average of around 74 FPS. I mean, this is more than playable. Right now, I'm not using any kind of frame generation. If I did, we could take this way up, because when you're running these through crossover, I've noticed that the AMD frame generation does work out quite well with a lot of the games, and in some cases, in order to get those high frame rates, you may need to enable it. Next up, we've got Street Fighter 6, and you might notice I did take this down to 900p. There's got to be an issue with crossover because at 1080 medium, we're seeing an average of around 56. I really can't get over that 60 mark at 1080. Even at low, I'm seeing the same kind of performance from low to medium with this one, so I do think that there is an issue with crossover in this game, but at 900, I mean, we're real close to running this at a steady 60. Next up, we've got Black Myth Wukong, and one thing I want to mention here, with the last 3 or 4 PC games, we have no audio, and it's my fault. The Mac Mini does have a built-in speaker, and it was enabled at the time of recording this. I didn't realize it, wasn't going through my game capture, but audio is working here. This was pretty impressive. We're at 1080 medium, but I did need to enable frame gen, and if you take a look up in the top left-hand corner with that metal HUD running, we're seeing an average of around 73 FPS with Wukong here. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart 1080 high with no frame gen, seeing kind of the same average. We're up in the mid 70s with this one, and I actually didn't expect this one to perform as well, because even though it's not a super intensive game, it's one of those games that's given a lot of the iGPUs that I've tested a run for its money. Usually we do need frame gen with something like the 780M, but with this, it works great in crossover on Mac. I also tested Fallout 4, and originally I went into this at 120 Hz, but it crashed on me a couple times, so I took it down to 60. Well, I locked it at 60, and now we can run it pretty well here at 1080 Ultra settings. And this is the version from Steam that was updated recently. And finally, for the PC game side of things, we've got Cyberpunk 2077, 1080p medium settings. Frame gen is on, and we're seeing an average of around 75. With frame gen disabled, we're seeing an average of around 42, so it definitely helps out here. And it's the built-in AMD FSR 3 frame gen. If we had a newer version, we might be able to see a little better performance here, but overall, I mean, it is playable at 1080 medium on the M4 Pro. So far, when it comes to PC gaming, I'm actually pretty impressed by what this little thing can do, but I think the most impressive thing here was the emulation performance this thing puts out. GameCube and Wii on even the M1 does an amazing job. There's a lot of games that we can run at 4K, but on this M4 Pro chip, I was able to take this up to 8K using the metal back end, and I actually haven't seen this before even on x86. To tell you the truth, I really haven't tested 8K on x86. And I'm sure it could do it with the correct GPU and CPU combo, but seeing it running at 8K on this little machine is really impressive. And it's roughly 8K because of the aspect ratio, but it's basically 12 times the original resolution of the GameCube. Using the metal back end, I'm not using any hacks here. This is Automodalista. In my experience, this has been a harder one to emulate on ARM chips, and let's just say an Android phone. With the newer Snapdragon Elite, we've been able to go up to 4K with it on a mobile device, but seeing 8K here is pretty impressive. Tested a few more here, and the only one that really gave me issues at 8K was Rogue Squadron 2. I had to drop that one back down to 4K, but again, like I mentioned at the beginning, not a lot of people are going to be doing this at 8K. I just wanted to show you that it is possible here with the M4 Pro chip. Now I've got a reason to invest in an 8K TV. The next emulator I wanted to test here was PCSX2 for some PS2 emulation, and we're working with the same thing here that we were with Dolphin. 8K resolution, metal back end. Ratchet & Clank is one of those games that does fluctuate on basically any system, but when we move over to, let's say, Gran Turismo 4, this can stay at a steady 60 8K. And when I say 8K with PS2, again, we've got a weird aspect ratio. It's not 16:9 or 16:10. So the output resolution with this game right now is 7,680 by 5,376. I mean, that's more than enough for an older PS2 game, but I gotta say, Gran Turismo 4 looks amazing like this. And the final thing I wanted to test here was some PS3 emulation. And while we can't do 8K with these games, we are at 720. It's just kind of the stock settings here once you boot the game up. Vulkan back in. Here's Skate 3, one that really takes advantage of extra CPU cores. And with this M4 Pro, we do have 14 cores running really well. I mean, this looks amazing. Kind of wish we had the metal back end built in, but Vulkan does handle a lot of the stuff pretty decently. And I also tested God of War 3. I've done a lot of different hacks and everything, really trying to get this up to 60 FPS, and it's as close as I can get it. I'll tell you, if I didn't have that frame counter on screen in the top right hand corner, I'd swear that this was running at 60. It's a really playable experience at 720p on the M4 Pro in this Mac Mini. Needless to say, I mean, this is a fast little ARM-based mini PC. Really wish we had the ability to install true Windows on the internal hard drive on this. That way we could see exactly what's going on. Now, of course, we could go with Parallels or something like that. Crossover is kind of my choice right now, but if there's anything else you want to see running on this, let me know in the comments below. If you're looking to pick one of these up, personally, I wouldn't go all out with the M4 Pro. These can get quite expensive. I would go with the base model. It comes in at $599 starting. Up from there with more RAM, but it does come standard with 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, and performance over there is also really great. If you want to check out the first video I made using that base model, link for that is down below. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. Really appreciate you watching. I was just really impressed by what this thing could do, so I wanted to show it off. Again, if there's anything else you want to see running on the M4 Pro Mac Mini, just let me know in the comments. And like always, thanks for watching.